All names were excluded except for the dogs. Olive never growled. Not once. Not even when she should have. That's the part that still makes my skin itch when I try to sleep. How a dog with two different colored eyes, a dog that should have been loud about everything wrong, just watched. Like she was waiting for me to finally notice the same thing she'd already accepted. Over the summer, I got a dog watching gig from a family friend. Easy money, right? One dog, big house, quiet area. They said a week, and they said 200, and I did the math like a dumb kid and got annoyed because it came out to basically nothing. Not even $1 an hour, if you actually counted time. And I almost declined. Not because I was drowning in better opportunities, but because it meant I'd have to stay there, on site, alone, in the middle of nowhere. Then I realized I wasn't doing much anyway. It was that last stretch before college, that last high school summer where you keep telling yourself you're going to do something memorable and then you just scroll. You sit in your room and scroll until your eyes feel dry. So I figure I might as well get paid to rot. They invited me over right after I said yes, to meet the dog and get a walkthrough. I drove out there with my windows down, music up, trying to make it feel like I was going somewhere cool instead of go to babysit someone's living room. The driveway was long, like stupid long. It wrapped through trees that leaned toward each other like they were gossiping. The kind of trees where you can't see the sky until the last bend. When I crested the little hill and the house finally showed, I actually sat up in my seat. Not because it was some mansion, but because it was too much for the people who owned it. They were nice, normal, suburban people. The type who send Christmas cards and say, "Let's circle back," unironically. Why did they have a country home with a second building on the property? The main house looked pristine, like it had been freshly power washed. The siding almost glowed, but the yard didn't match it. The grass was patchy and tall in places, like the mower had stopped halfway and no one finished. The flower bed along the front porch was full of weeds, and not the cute little ones, thick, ugly stalks like they'd been left to do whatever they wanted. The driveway, though, fresh blacktop, smooth as hell, not a crack. It was like they could pay for the big, obvious stuff, but the smaller, daily things were just abandoned. My mom had mentioned their grandparents weren't doing well. It was something she said in that hushed voice adults use when they're talking about bodies failing. So I told myself it made sense. You can hire someone to pave a driveway. You can't hire someone to make you care enough to pull weeds. I parked, killed the music, and immediately felt like I'd walked into a noise vacuum. Even with the car off, it felt too quiet, like the air was holding its breath. They came out smiling, waving like they were greeting me for a barbecue and not handing me their house keys like a hostage negotiator. "Hey, you made it," the mom said. I'll call her Kara because that's close enough to her actual name that my brain still flinches, but not exact. Her husband, Matt, hung back a little. He had that tired look people get when they've been pretending everything's fine for months and they don't even remember what their real face looks like anymore. As I walked up the porch steps, something moved at my feet, so quietly I actually startled. Like a shadow, slipped between my shoes. Olive. She was medium-sized, not a tiny yappy thing, not a big protective breed. Just dog. A little too skinny, like she ran hot all the time. Her coat was dark, almost black, with this weird shine like she'd been brushed too much. And her eyes, one brown, one pale blue, locked on me immediately. Not barking, not wagging like crazy, just looking. "That's our dog, Olive," Kara said, like I hadn't just about jumped out of my skin. She's shy at first, but she's sweet. Olive stepped forward and sniffed my hand once, quick. Then she pressed the side of her head into my shin like she was checking the shape of me. It should have been comforting. It should have felt like, okay, cool, the dog likes me. Instead, it felt like she was marking me, like she was deciding something. They gave me the tour. Living room, kitchen, basement, guest room where I'd sleep. They showed me where her food was, where the leash was, where the vet number was. All the normal stuff. Then Kara pointed toward the back windows, where the land sloped down away from the house. "You could take her down to the lake," she said. "She likes to walk the shore. Just don't let her go near the boathouse." I laughed a little. Why, is it falling apart? Matt answered that one, and his voice had this flat edge. It's locked. It's not safe. Just don't mess with it. It wasn't what he said so much as how fast he said it. Like he'd been waiting for the moment the boathouse came up so he could shut it down. I looked out again. Through the trees, you could see a slice of water. Not a big open lake like you see on postcards. More like a wide, dark pond that stretched farther than the tree line let you see. The surface was still. No sparkles. No little ripples from wind. It looked heavy. And there it was, off to the left, this long, low building on pilings near the waterline. The boathouse. Metal roof. Old wood. It sat like a crouched animal. Also on the property, a little farther back, was the second structure I'd seen from the driveway. It looked like a smaller house, but not cute. More like an older cabin that had been renovated halfway and then ignored. The windows were dark. The porch sagged. The door was shut. I nodded like I didn't care. Sure, noble atose. Kara's smile tightened for half a second. Thank you. Before I left that day, she handed me a ring of keys and did this whole spiel about the alarm system. Matt hovered in the doorway like he wanted the tour over, like the longer we stood in the house, the more likely something would happen. Olive followed me the entire time, silent. Every time I turned, she was already there, two-tone eyes fixed on my hands, my pockets, my face. Like she was memorizing me. I drove home, feeling weirdly pumped. A week alone in a big house before college, I could do whatever. I could eat trash food, stay up late, blast music, pretend I was an adult. It sounded like freedom. I pre-bought snacks like I was preparing for a hurricane. Microwave meals, chips, candy, energy drinks. Downloaded shows because they warned me the Wi-Fi was spotty. I told my friends I'd be at a lake house. Like that made it cooler. Then the week started. Day one, I carried my duffel in, kicked my shoes off, and immediately felt the quiet again. The kind of quiet that isn't peaceful. The kind that makes you aware of your own breathing, your own swallowing, the little wet clicks your mouth makes. Olive met me at the door, like she'd been sitting there the whole time, waiting. Novak, just a stare and a slow wag of her tail, like she was doing it because she knew it was expected. I wandered around, trying to shake the feeling. I ate, I watched stuff, I FaceTimed a friend, I explored the house because I needed movement. Every creak made me pause. Every time the AC kicked on, I flinched like someone whispered my name. I blamed my true crime podcast addiction. I've been mainlining those missing person episodes like it was a diet. My brain was full of worst-case scenarios. So I told myself, you're fine. You're alone with a dog. Nothing's gonna happen. That night, I ended up on TikTok for hours, bouncing between live streams, watching people sing badly, doing the same dumb, comforting thing teenagers do to avoid thinking. Then the whole house started shaking. Not a gentle vibration, a hard, sudden thump like something heavy hit the foundation. I sat straight up on the couch, phone instantly dimming because my thumb stopped moving. Silence rushing around me like water. Another shake hit, rapid-fire thuds, and then a crackling boom that sounded like gunshots too close. My heart went stupid, just full sprint. I literally opened my text to Kara and started typing, "Are your neighbors shooting?" Because that's where my brain went, some pissed-off country dude blasting rounds at midnight. Then I looked at the date on my phone. July 4th. Are you kidding me? I whispered out loud, like the house could hear me. I ran upstairs and pressed my face to the window. Sure enough, red and blue fireworks popped above the tree line, reflected faintly off the lake like bruises blooming on water. I went back down, half laughing at myself, half pissed that my body had just dumped adrenaline into my bloodstream like I was about to die. That's when I looked up from my phone and Olive was standing in the hallway, staring at me. In the dim light, her eyes didn't look cute anymore. They looked wrong, too focused, too calm. I smiled automatically because when a dog looks at you, you smile. It's like a reflex. And Olive tilted her head. Not the normal, tilt. Not the playful one. This was slow, deliberate, like she was trying to line up a sound she could hear with my face. like she was listening through me. For a second, I had this stupid thought that she wanted to talk, like there were words in her throat and she couldn't push them out. Then another firework boomed, and she didn't even flinch. 20 minutes later, the fireworks stopped. The loudness died away. The house settled. The silence came back, and it felt thicker now, like the noise had stirred something up and then left it behind. I turned my volume up. I let TikTok audios and stupid reels fill the gaps. I ate candy. I pretended the quiet wasn't pressing against my ears. When I finally went upstairs, Olive followed and jumped onto the bed like she owned it. She curled up near my knees, facing the door, eyes half open. Not sleeping, not really. Guarding. I told myself it was sweet. Day 2, I realized I'd underestimated how fast I'd eat. My storm supplies were already looking sad. I decided I'd do daily runs, grab a few things at a time, so I wouldn't blow the whole 200 on food. Also because I needed to leave the house at least once a day. If I stayed inside, the quiet started crawling under my skin again. So I'd sleep late, wake up, hang out with Olive, scroll, then leave in the late afternoon or evening, blast music, feel like the world still existed outside that property. Every time I came back, Olive would be there by the door. Always silent, always waiting. By day 3, I was down to salad bags and fruit like I'd accidentally joined a wellness cult. I got annoyed at myself and tried to redirect that energy into something productive. I figured I'd help Kara and Matt out by cleaning up the flower bed, make the place look nicer when they returned. Score points. It was hot as hell, humid, the kind of heat that makes your shirt cling immediately and your hair feel wet. The weeds were thick, rooted deep. When I yanked them out, the soil underneath smelled sour like old water. Olive stayed out there with me. She didn't run around. She didn't chase bugs. She just stood a few feet away and watched the tree line toward the lake like she was waiting for something to step out. Every time I finished a patch, I'd reach for her and she'd come close enough to be touched, then drift away again, like she didn't want my hand on her for too long. That night, in the shower, I decided I'd earn a treat tomorrow. Something greasy, something that tasted like normal life. Day 4, I realized I hadn't fed myself anything all day. I'd fed Olive breakfast and dinner. I'd poured her water. I'd done all the caretaker stuff. And I'd forgotten me. It was getting dark, the time I usually left for my food run. I grabbed my keys, told Olive be good, like she understood English, and headed out. On the way to Chick-fil-A, I turned on my true crime podcast again, because by then I felt comfortable enough in the house to pretend I wasn't scared. Like, see, I can listen to murder stories while alone in the woods. I'm fine. I got my food, drove back, and the sky had that deep blue-black color where trees turn into silhouettes. The driveway felt longer at night. My headlights carved through it like I was tunneling. When I pulled up and killed the engine, the quiet hit me again, immediate and heavy. No crickets, no frogs, no distant road noise. Just nothing. I got out, balancing the bag and my drink, fumbling for the keys in the dark because of course the porch light wasn't on. My fingers were greasy from fries. The metal of the key ring felt cold. That's when I heard it. A bark. Sharp. Close. Not Olive's soft, hey, bark. This sounded like warning. My whole body went tight. The hair on my neck stood up so fast it felt like I'd been touched. I froze with my keys half out, listening. Another bark, lower this time, like something bigger. I shoved the key in the lock and basically fell through the door with my food, expecting Olive to be right there, dancing, needing to pee, happy I was home. She wasn't. The entryway was empty. The hallway beyond was dark. The house smelled faintly like lake water, that mineral, muddy scent you get when you flip a rock at the shore. Olive, I called, trying to make it casual. No nails clicking. No little huff. Nothing. That was the moment my paranoia stopped being a joke. It was like my body finally got permission to take it seriously. I set my food down on the kitchen counter so I wouldn't drop it, then headed toward the back door because that's where I usually let her out. I took 2 steps and my stomach dropped so hard I felt it in my throat. Olive was in her crate, shaking so violently the metal door rattled. and her crate was locked from the outside. There was a little padlock on the latch that hadn't been there before. Not a maybe I didn't notice it thing. A real lock, bright silver in the dim kitchen light, like someone had just snapped it on. Olive's eyes caught mine, brown and blue, wide, wet, terrified, and her head tilted again. Slow, deliberate, like she was begging me to hear what she was hearing. I didn't even breathe for a second. My brain was trying to solve it fast, like a math problem. I left. Olive was loose. I came back. Olive is locked. So either Kara and Matt secretly came home and locked her up. Impossible. I would have seen their car, or someone else had been in the house. I crouched in front of the crate and grabbed the lock. It was cold. Too cold. Like it had been sitting in water. I jiggled it. Useless. No key. No combination. Okay. I whispered stupidly like the dog could help. It's fine. A sound upstairs cut me off. Not a creak. Not the house settling. Footsteps. Slow. Barely there. Like someone was walking in socks. Careful not to make noise, but still heavy enough that the floor complained. Olive pressed herself back against the crate wall, like she wanted to become smaller than her own body. I stayed crouched, staring at the staircase, holding my breath so I could listen. Another step, then another, moving from one room to the hallway. My mouth went dry. I should have run. I should have grabbed my phone and bolted outside and called the cops like a normal person. But my phone was on the couch in the living room across the house, and my keys were on the kitchen counter, and Olive was locked in front of me, shaking like she was going to rattle apart. And I had this stupid, stubborn thought. I'm not leaving her. So I did the dumbest thing possible. I stood up, slowly, quietly, like if I moved fast, the sound upstairs would lock onto me like a predator. I took a step toward the counter and grabbed a kitchen knife. Not a huge one, just the biggest I could find without clattering through a drawer. My hand was slick with sweat immediately. The footsteps upstairs stopped. Dead stop, like whoever it was had been listening to. For a second, all I could hear was Olive's breathing, fast, shaky little inhales, and the low hum of the refrigerator. Then something tapped upstairs. A soft knock, like a fingernail on wood. Talp! Talp! It wasn't random. It was rhythmic. Like testing. My eyes burned. I realized de hadden blinkt. I backed up until I was between the crate and the kitchen island. Knife held out like that meant anything. I wanted to yell, "Who's there?" Because that's what people do in movies. But my throat wouldn't make sound. Olive's tail thumped once against the crate floor, accidental, like her body betrayed her. The tapping upstairs stopped again. Then I heard it, this faint drag, like something being pulled across the floor. A chair? A body? My brain supplied the worst options first, because that's what brains do when you're scared. I forced myself to move, slow, toward the living room so I could grab my phone. Every inch felt like I was walking into a spotlight. The hallway was darker than it should have been. The house lights were off, and the windows reflected blackness. Outside, the lake was just a void. When I reached the living room, my phone was face down on the couch. I snatched it, screen lighting my hands, and immediately typed Kara's name. My fingers hovered. What do you even say? Hey, someone's in your house, and also your dog is locked in a crate with a padlock, and I have Chick-fil-A cooling on the counter. I hit call. It rang once, twice, then went to voicemail. I tried Matt. Same thing. No answer. Upstairs, a floorboard creaked again. Different location this time. Closer to the top of the stairs. I stare at the staircase. Phone clenched so hard my knuckles hurt. Knife still in my other hand like a pathetic accessory. And then I saw something I hadn't noticed before. A wet mark on the hardwood at the bottom step. Not a puddle. Not a spill. A footprint. Longer than mine. Narrow. Like a boot had pressed water into the wood and left a perfect outline. Another wet print appeared above it, on the second step. It wasn't dripping down from upstairs. It was coming down. My stomach flipped. I backed up until my shoulder hit the wall, because there was nowhere else to go without turning my back on the stairs. My mind was screaming at me to run outside, but my legs wouldn't commit. The wet print on the second step darkened. like more water sank into the grain. And then, as I watched, a third print formed on the third step. Slowly, like pressure settling, like something invisible was stepping. Olive's crate started rattling harder behind me. Not because she was trying to get out, because she was shaking so violently the whole thing vibrated. I forced my voice to work, just enough to whisper, "Nope." I spun and sprinted back to the kitchen, because at least there I wasn't trapped in the open. I slammed the pantry door shut behind me like that would help, then immediately hated myself because it made noise. My heart was trying to escape my ribs. Olive stared at me through the crate bars like I betrayed her. "I'm not leaving," I hissed like I had to convince her. Or myself. "I'm not leaving you." I looked around for something to break the lock. A hammer? Screwdriver? Anything. But it was a rich person kitchen. Everything was sleek and hidden. No tools. No clutter. No normal human mess. The footsteps started again. Downstairs now. Soft. Vet. Moving through the hallway toward the kitchen. I could smell it now. Faint but real lake water, yes, but not clean lake water. Stagnant. Like mud and algae in something old. My eyes flicked to the back door. The glass panes showed only darkness and a faint reflection of my own face. Pale, wide-eyed, stupid. Then the doorknob turned. Not fast, not aggressive. Just turned like someone was checking if it was locked. It was locked. I always locked it. The knob jiggled once, then stopped. For a full 2 seconds, there was nothing. Then a gentle knock on the glass. Top, top, like upstairs, like fingernails. My grip on the knife tightened until my hand cramped. Another knock. Top, top. And then, so soft I almost didn't register it. Something scratched the glass slow, like a nail dragging down. I couldn't see anything through the dark, but I pictured it anyway. A hand. Pale. Water swollen. Fingers too long. The scratch stopped. Silence again. Then Olive, for the first time since I'd met her, made a sound I'll never forget. Not a bark. A low, broken whine like pain. And she tilted her head, staring past me, toward the hallway, not at the door. Because whatever was out, there wasn't the only thing in the house anymore. I turned, knife raised, and saw the basement door. It was open a crack. It hadn't been open when I came in. I knew that, because it always stuck. You had to pull it hard to make it shut right. And I'd shut it every night because the basement freaked me out in a normal way. That unfinished cold airway. Now it was open, just enough for a thin line of black to show. And from that crack came the sound of water moving. Not a drip, a slow slosh, like something shifting in a shallow pool. My mouth went numb. The footsteps in the hallway stopped, like they were waiting for me to notice the basement too. Like this was the point. Like the whole house had been guiding me, quietly, into the exact direction I didn't want to go. I backed away from the basement door until I hit the counter. My eyes bounced between the back door, the hallway, and that crack of darkness leading down. And then, from the basement, a voice spoke. Not loud, not a shout, a wet, ruined whisper that barely made it through the crack. Olive. It didn't say it like someone calling a dog. It said it like it knew her, like it owned the name. Olive went rigid in the crate, every muscle locked. Her eyes went huge, and for the first time, she didn't look at me for help. She looked at the basement door, like she was looking at a cliff edge. And then she tilted her head one last time, so slow it felt like a surrender, and her tail stopped moving completely. My brain did this stupid thing where it tried to convince me it wasn't real. Like if I stared at the basement door long enough, the crack would close on its own, and the sloshing would turn into a drip, and the whisper would turn into the fridge hum. It didn't. Olive, the voice said again, closer this time. Not louder, just closer, like it was standing right behind the door with its mouth pressed to the wood. Olive didn't move. She didn't blink. Her whole body looked like it had gone into statue mode, like prey animals do when they decide motion is what gets them killed. I backed up until my hips hit the sink. My hand still had the knife, but my wrist was shaking so hard the blade made tiny clicking sounds against the counter when I shifted. My phone screen was lit in my other hand. The only reason I hadn't already dialed 911 was because I kept thinking the second I spoke too loud, something would answer. The back door knob turned again. Slow, patient, testing, talp, scratch. The scratch was longer this time, like something dragged a nail from the top pane down to the bottom. The sound went right through me, not because it was loud, but because it was intimate, like someone drawing a line down your spine with a fingernail. I whispered, stop, not to the thing, to myself. Stop freezing. Move. My eyes snapped to the basement door again. The crack widened by maybe half an inch, so small you could argue it was my imagination. But the sound of water moving got clearer. Slosh, slosh, not footsteps. Something shifting. I finally forced my thumb to hit the emergency call shortcut, and my phone started dialing. The ringtone was the loudest sound I'd heard all day. It felt obscene, like I'd shouted in a church. On the first ring, the basement went quiet. On the second ring, the back door knob stopped moving. On the third ring, Olive's head snapped toward me. And for the first time, she made eye contact like a real dog again, like she was pleading. A click. 911, what's your emergency? I sucked in air like I'd been underwater. I'm house sitting. There's someone in the house. I think someone's trying to get in. And my dog is locked in a crate with a padlock and I didn't do it. There was a pause. Keyboard tapping. The operator's voice stayed calm in that way that makes you feel crazy. Okay, what's your address? I gave it. My voice shook so badly, I had to repeat the numbers. Are you in a safe place? I looked around the kitchen like there was a safe place option. No, I'm in the kitchen. There's a basement door open and I hear water down there. And someone was on the stairs and there's wet footprints. Another pause. Is the intruder visible? No, but I heard them. I heard footsteps. And something's at the back door. The operator did that thing where they ask questions like the answers won't change anything. Do you have any weapons? A kitchen knife. Okay, do not go looking for the intruder. Officers are on the way. Can you move to a locked room? My eyes slid to the pantry, then to the back hallway, then to the basement door crack. I could lock myself in the bathroom. I could lock myself in the guest room. But Olive shifted just slightly, like her muscles were cramping from fear. I can't leave the dog, I whispered. Sir, I'm not leaving her. A sound came from the basement then. A small sound, like a wet hand slapping the inside of the door. Just once, and then a little laugh. So faint I almost missed it. Not a human laugh. Not really. It sounded like air bubbling out of something. I choked. They're down there. Officers are en route. Stay on the line with me. The back door tapped again. Talp. Then the scratching started, faster like impatience. I had this awful realization that the back door thing and the basement thing weren't the same. Because the scratching was high up like fingers on glass, and the basement sound was low, heavy like something dragging itself. The operator kept talking, but my brain wasn't hearing it. My brain was doing a different calculation now. If I lock myself away, Olive is stuck here. If I try to free her, I have to get close to the basement door. If I run out the front, Olive is stuck here and something can take her. I don't know why that mattered so much. It was a dog, a sweet dog, a quiet dog, but still a dog I've been responsible for. And also, she was the only other living thing in the house with me. Leaving her felt like cutting the last rope. My eyes darted to the key ring. The homeowners had left a ring with like 8 keys. I'd barely looked at them after day 1. I'd used the front door key, the back door key. The rest were just metal. What if one of them fit the padlock? I slid sideways along the counter, keeping the knife pointed vaguely toward the basement door, and grabbed the key ring. Olive's eyes followed it like she understood. Like she'd been waiting for me to think of that. The padlock was small, basic. Not a fancy combination lock. A cheap little thing you'd put on a gym locker. I started trying keys. The first one didn't fit. The second one slid in, but wouldn't turn. The third one didn't fit. Behind me, the basement door creaked. Not opening more, just creaking like pressure shifting. like something leaning on the other side. I heard the operator say my name, my actual name, because they'd asked it and typed it, but it sounded far away. The fourth key went in. My fingers shook so hard I almost dropped it. I twisted. Nothing. I twisted harder. The key bent slightly, and I panicked, imagining it snapping off inside. From the basement door crack, something wet scraped, slow, like nails on concrete. Olive whined again, louder, and that sound broke me. It yanked my focus back into my body. Shoo! I hissed like she was the problem. I'm trying. The fifth key fit. It turned. The padlock clicked open. I almost sobbed. Olive lunged forward inside the crate like she wanted to burst through the bars, but I had to unlatch the door first. My hands fumbled. The metal was slick, like it had condensation on it. When the crate door finally swung open, Olive shot out and slammed into my legs so hard I staggered. She pressed herself against me, trembling, and then she did something she hadn't done all week. She growled. Low, deep, not loud, but real. She wasn't growling at me. She was growling at the basement door. The crack widened another inch, and something black, just a sliver, appeared in the darkness behind it. Not a hand, not a face, just something like a wet sleeve or the side of the soaked jacket pressed against the gap. Olive's growl turned into a bark, sharp and furious. And the thing behind the door whispered, no, not angry, not yelling, just no, like a parent correcting a dog. Olive stopped barking instantly, like she'd been trained. My whole stomach dropped. I backed away with Olive, step by step, toward the front of the house. Knife up, phone still at my ear. The operator's voice rose, urgent now. Officers are 2 minutes out. Can you exit the house safely? The front door was across the living room. In between was the staircase, the hallway, the open view of the kitchen behind me with that cracked basement door. I could leave. I could run. Then I heard it. Not from inside. From outside. A bark. That first bark I'd heard when I came home. But it didn't come from Olive. Olive was right here, pressed against my leg. This bark was deeper. Throaty. It came from somewhere near the lake. My blood went cold in a new way. Like my fear shifted tracks. Because that meant there was another dog. Or something that could sound like one. Olive's head snapped toward the sound. Her ears pinned back. Her tail tucked so hard it disappeared. She looked at me, then toward the windows, then toward the back of the house like she was screaming directions without a voice. Don't go that way. Another bark, closer now, echoing off water. My phone hissed in my ear, sir. Sir, are you there? I hear a dog outside. I whispered, but Olive's right here. Silence on the line for half a beat. Okay, stay inside. Do not go toward the sound. The basement door creaked again wider. A breath came through the crack, cold, wet air that smelled like lake mud and rust. And then, from behind the door, I heard a different sound. A soft, repetitive thump, like something tapping wood from the inside. Top, top. The same rhythm as upstairs. The same rhythm as the glass. Like a signal, like a call and response. My skin went numb. There's more than one, I said, and my voice cracked on one. There's more than one of whatever this is. Olive barked again, not at the basement this time, but at me, like she was trying to push me forward. Move, move, move. So I did. I ran for the front door. Olive kept tight to my heel, silent except for the occasional grunt of effort as she sprinted. My foot caught on the edge of the rug in the living room, and I almost ate shit. The knife clattered against the door frame as I reached for the lock. The front door was deadbolt. My fingers slipped on the knob. In the kitchen behind me, the basement door opened. Not slowly, not creeping. It swung wider with a wet smack, like it hit something damp on the floor. Olive let out a noise that wasn't a bark, wasn't a whine, just a sharp, panicked yelp. I got the deadbolt. I yanked the door open. Cold night air slapped me in the face. It smelled like trees and wet earth. I stumbled onto the porch and nearly fell down the steps, dragging Olive by sheer momentum. The operator's voice exploded in my ear. Get to a safe distance from the house. And then I heard the sound from inside. Footsteps, wet and heavy, hitting the entryway floor. Coming fast, I bolted down the steps, gravel biting into my bare feet because I'd forgotten shoes because I'm an idiot. I sprinted toward my car, hand fumbling in my pocket for keys I didn't have because I'd left them on the counter trying the padlock. I hit the side of my car and spun, heart hammering, phone still pressed to my ear. The front door stood open behind me like a black mouth. Nothing came out, but the air in that doorway looked wrong, like humidity warping light, like heat shimmer but cold. I backed up farther until my spine hit my car door and I stared, waiting for a person to step out. Instead, something moved in the doorway. Not a full body, just a shape sliding into view. It was tall, too tall, and it didn't have a face where it should have had a face. The porch light was off, and the only illumination was my car's headlights still fading from when I'd pulled in, but in that faint light, I saw wetness. A sheen, like someone had soaked clothes and never dried them. It leaned forward and water dripped from it in slow strings. Olive made a sound beside me like she was choking. The thing didn't step out. It just stayed in the doorway, watching. Then it lifted one arm, slow, like it was waving. And in a voice that was not human, but was using human sounds, it said, "Come back in." The operator's voice was screaming now. I didn't even hear the words. I just heard the urgency. I backed away from my car, away from the house, toward the long driveway, because there was nowhere else. Olive stayed with me, but her head kept turning, like she couldn't stop checking behind. The thing in the doorway tilted its head, the same tilt Olive did, and then it smiled. I know that sounds stupid because I just said it didn't have a face, but it did something that read as a smile. The wet skin in the lower part of its head pulled, and the darkness inside its mouth opened, and I saw teeth that looked like they'd been filed down and regrown wrong. Then stepped back into the house and disappeared. The front door stayed open. The operator asked where I was. I told her I was outside, moving away. She told me to stay on the line, to keep going, to get to the road if I could. I didn't make it far before red and blue lights flooded the trees. A patrol car came tearing up the driveway like the cops expected to find an active shooter. Gravel sprayed, doors slammed, flashlights snapped on, hands where we can see them. I dropped my knife so fast it clanged against a rock. I raised my hands, phone still in one. I'm the caller. I'm the one who called. Olive barked, frantic now, circling my legs like she didn't know which direction to guard. Two officers approached, one with his hand near his gun, the other with a flashlight aimed at my face like I was the criminal. Step forward slowly, the first one ordered. I did. There's someone in the house. I blurted, "Not someone, I don't know, something." The dog was locked in a crate. There were wet footprints on the stairs. The basement there's water down there. I heard a voice. They exchanged a look that made my stomach twist. That look cops get when they think you're high or lying. The second officer glanced down at Olive. "Dog yours?" "No, I'm watching her. I'm house sitting." "Okay." The first officer's voice stayed flat. "You say someone's inside right now?" Yes. It was in the doorway. It told me to come back in. "Describe it." I opened my mouth and realized how insane it sounded. Tall, wet, no face, teeth. Like, cool. Here's my horror movie villain description. It was like a person but not, I said, voice cracking. Like it was soaked. It dripped. The second officer's eyebrows lifted a fraction. "So a person covered in water." "No, not." I swallowed hard. There was a smell. Like the lake. Like old water. And it moved wrong. The first officer gave a tiny nod like, "Sure, okay." He turned to his partner. "You stay with him. I'll clear the house." "No," I said too fast. "Don't go in alone." He looked at me like I'd just insulted him. "We'll do our job." Another patrol car rolled up behind, lights strobing through the trees. Two more officers got out. Now, they had numbers. They approached the house with flashlights and radios, weapons drawn in that way that's supposed to look controlled, but always looks like fear with authority. I stood by the driveway with the second officer, shaking. My phone call had ended somewhere in the chaos. The operator replaced by real, flashing lights and real boots crunching gravel. Olive stayed pinned to my shin, trembling, eyes locked on the open front door. She wouldn't look away. Minutes stretched. For where we stood, we couldn't see inside, only the black rectangle of the doorway. The officer beside me kept glancing at me like he was trying to decide if I was on something. "You been drinking tonight?" "No." "You take anything?" "No. I went to Chick-fil-A. I came back. The dog was locked. Someone was in the house." He gave me a look like, "Okay, kid." Then one of the officers inside shouted, "Clear." Another voice, "Basement's dry. No standing water." I snapped my head toward the doorway. "No, it's not." I heard, "Dry." The voice repeated, louder, like they wanted me to hear it, like they were correcting a child. Then the first officer reappeared at the doorway and walked out into the porch light glow from his flashlight. He looked annoyed, not scared, not freaked out. Annoyed. "No one inside," he said. "That's bullshit." I snapped before I could stop myself. It was right there. He fixed his eyes on me. "We clear the residence." Doors were locked. No signs of forced entry. Bauschamin's door was shut. My blood went cold again. It was open. It opened while I was on the phone. He gave the smallest shrug. "House settles. Doors move." "Wet footprints on the stairs," I said. They formed, like someone stepping down. The officer's mouth tightened. We didn't see wet prints. I looked down at my own feet and realized something that made my stomach flip. The gravel under my feet was dry. It had been damp earlier. I remembered it because the air smelled wet and the ground felt soft. Now it was dry. The night air felt crisp, not humid. Like the property itself had reset. Olive growled quietly. The second officer crouched to check the knife I dropped. "You said the dog was locked in a crate?" "Yes." My voice went hoarse. "With a padlock. I unlocked it with their key ring. I can show you." They brought me up to the porch like escorting a suspect. My chest felt tight. I didn't want to go back in. Every instinct screamed no. But Olive walked ahead of me like she had to. Like the house was her territory, whether she wanted it or not. Inside, the air was different. Less heavy. The quiet still existed, but it didn't press as hard. Like the house was performing normal. The crate sat in the kitchen, unlocked, no padlock on it. I stared at the latch, my brain refusing. "No, you whispered." "No, it was right here." The officer raised an eyebrow. "So, where's the padlock?" I looked around like it might be on the counter, under the table, anywhere. Nothing. The key ring sat neatly on the kitchen island, not where I'd left it. I felt my face go hot. "Someone moved it," I said, but even I heard how desperate it sounded. The first officer walked to the basement door and put his hand on it. He pulled it open. A normal basement smell wafted up, dry concrete and dust. No wet air. No lake stink. He shined his flashlight down. "See? Dry. No one down there." I stared into the darkness and felt like I was losing my mind. Because the sound had been real. The voice had been real. The cold air had been real. Unless it hadn't. Unless the house could make sounds. Unless it could throw a voice. Unless it could move a padlock and wipe away footprints and close a door while cops were inside. I swallowed so hard it hurt. "I'm not staying here," I said. The first officer sighed like I was a kid refusing broccoli. "You said your house sitting. Owners know you called us." I tried. They didn't answer. "Okay, we can attempt contact." He looked at the other officer. "Get the homeowner info." They made a call. They waited. No answer. The first officer turned back to me. "We could do a perimeter check. Make sure no one's on the property. But if there's no sign of forced entry, there's not much we can do." I stared at him. "So you're just leaving?" He held my gaze. "If you want to leave, leave. If you want to stay, stay. But there's no crime we can act on right now." I felt like screaming. "My dog." "You mean their dog?" He corrected automatically. Olive pressed against my leg like she knew. Like she was reminding me, we're alone again. The lights go, and it comes back. They checked outside with flashlights, sweeping the tree line. They walked toward the lake a little, but they didn't go far. The slope down there was steep and the ground was uneven, and they had that vibe of city cops out in rural land, uncomfortable. One officer came back and said, "Boathouse is locked." I almost laughed. "Yeah, they told me not to go near it." The officer paused and asked why. "I don't know." Said it wasn't safe. They exchanged another look. This one wasn't about me being crazy. This one had something else in it. A tiny flicker of, oh. The first officer cleared his throat. "Look, if you want to stay somewhere else tonight, that's probably smart. Take the dog with you if you have permission." "I don't," I said, "and I can't just." He gave me a flat look. "You're responsible for her. If you believe there's a threat here, you remove yourself and the animal." So that's what I did. Not because he told me, because I couldn't stand the idea of stepping into that guest room and turning out the light and waiting for tapping to start. I grabbed Olive's leash, clipped it on with hands that still wouldn't stop shaking, and I loaded her into my car. She jumped in without hesitation, like she'd been waiting for me to finally make the right choice. The cops watched me go like I was a dramatic teenager, like the whole thing was an overreaction. As I backed down the driveway, headlights sweeping the yard, I glanced toward the lake, and I saw something that made my throat close. Down near the waterline, between the trees, a shape stood. Tall, still, reflecting a faint sheen like wet clothing. I blinked hard, telling myself it was a tree trunk, a post, a shadow. The shape lifted its arm and waved. I hit the gas so hard the tires spit gravel. I drove to the only place open that late in that area, some shitty 24-hour diner near the highway where truckers drank coffee and stared into space. I parked under bright lights and sat in my car for a full minute, hands locked on the steering wheel, trying not to vomit. Olive sat in the passenger seat, panting fast, eyes wide, staring at the diner windows like she was expecting something to step out. I walked her around the parking lot to pee. She stayed tight to my leg, pulling only when she smelled something interesting, then snapping back to me like she remembered the lake smell and didn't want any new smells. Inside the diner, I bought a coffee I didn't drink and a plate of fries I didn't touch. I sat in a booth, Olive at my feet, leash wrapped around my wrist like she'd fly away if I let go. I tried calling the homeowners again. No answer. I texted. I kept it simple, because what do you even say? Something weird happened. I called police. "Please call me ASAP." The message delivered. No response. I considered calling my mom, but I didn't want to say it out loud. I didn't want to hear my own voice describing it and realizing how insane it sounded. Also, I didn't want her to tell me to just calm down, and it's probably nothing because that would make me feel even more alone. So I stayed there until dawn, sitting under fluorescent lights, watching Olive's ears twitch every time the diner door opened. When the sky started to lighten, I drove back. I know, stupid, but I had to. I had to feed Olive. I had to make sure the house was locked. I had to pretend I was still doing the job, because some part of me thought if I ran fully, something worse would happen. Like the house would notice at one. When I pulled into the driveway in the morning, everything looked normal. Birds chirping, sunlight filtering through trees, the lake glinting faintly, almost pretty. The house looked like a house again. I walked in with Olive and immediately checked the crate. No padlock. Normal latch. Bauschament door shut. Back door locked. No wood smell. No weird pressure. For a minute, I almost believed it had been a panic episode, that I'd listened to too much true crime and spooked myself. Then Olive stopped in the hallway and stared at the basement door. Her head tilted. Slow. Deliberate. Like, don't forget. The rest of that day was a blur of me trying to act normal and failing. I kept all the lights on. I kept the TV on, not even watching, just noise. I moved through the house like I was trying not to piss it off. I fed Olive, filled her water, took her outside, but I didn't go anywhere near the lake. Not even close. She tried, though. She kept tugging toward the slope, like there was something down there she needed to check, like she couldn't relax until she saw the water line. I wouldn't let her. Every hour or so, I checked my phone. No reply. Around late afternoon, I finally got a text. Just one line. Everything okay? No apology for not answering. No explanation. Just that. My hands went cold. I stared at it until the letters blurred. I typed back. Someone locked Olive in her crate with a padlock. I heard someone in the house. I called the cops. 3 dots appeared immediately, like they'd been waiting. Then they vanished. Then they appeared again. Then vanished. Finally, what? I felt this surge of rage that surprised me. Like, what do you mean what? Like I imagined it? I typed. There was a padlock on her crate. The cops came. They didn't find anyone, but I saw someone at the lake. This time, no dots. No immediate reply. Minutes passed. Then, don't go near the water. That was it. No, are you safe? No, thank you. No, we're coming home early. Just a warning like a rule. My stomach dropped because it meant they believed me. Or at least, they didn't want me near the thing that caused it. I texted, what is going on? No reply. I called. It rang. Voicemail. I threw my phone onto the couch so hard it bounced. Olive flinched and stared at me like she was startled by my anger. I'm not staying, I told her. I'm not fucking staying. But then I looked around at the windows, the doors, the walls, and realized I couldn't just leave. Because leaving meant Olive stayed on their property alone. So I decided something else. Something even dumber. If the homeowners wouldn't tell me what was going on, I was going to find out myself. Because not knowing was worse. Because the house felt like it was holding something in its throat, and I needed to see it to believe it. In the center of it, the gravitational pull of all the weirdness was the lake. And that boathouse. Night fell again. I tried to keep my courage up by staying angry. Anger is easier than fear. Anger makes you feel like you can punch a ghost. Around 10, when the house had settled into that heavy quiet again, I clipped Olive's leash on and walked her toward the back. She resisted, not pulling away like she wanted to go inside, pulling toward the lake like she couldn't help it, like the water had her on a rope. The grass got thicker, damp under my shoes. The slope down to the lake was steeper than it looked from the porch. Trees crowded in. The air got cooler and smelled like minerals and algae. When we got close enough to see the water clearly, my stomach clenched. The lake's surface was too still. Even with no wind, water usually moves. Little ripples. Insects. Something. This lake looked like glass. Olive stared at it, hackles raised. A low growl vibrated through her chest into the leash. Okay, I whispered. Just a look. That's it. The boathouse sat off to the left, partly over the water, partly on land. The door faced shore. It was a big sliding door with a padlock on the outside, bigger than the one that had been on Olive's crate. I approached slow, flashlight in hand. My phone light, because I wasn't bringing anything else down here. Every step felt wrong, like the ground didn't want my weight. Olive stayed behind me, not pulling forward now, holding back like she was bracing. When I got to the boathouse door, I shined a light on the lock. It was wet, not damp from dew. Well, like it had just been dipped, and around the lock, on the wood, were streaks like fingers had smeared water there. My pulse started pounding in my ears. I tried the door anyway, because I'm an idiot. It didn't budge. I crouched to look at the lock closer. There were scratches on it. Fresh, bright gouges in the metal, like something had tried to break out. Olive let out a soft whine behind me. When I glanced back, she wasn't looking at the boathouse. She was looking at the water, and in the reflection of my flashlight beam, I saw a movement. Not a fish, not a ripple, a shape just beneath the surface sliding. Long, slow. My throat locked. I couldn't move. My brain was screaming, don't look, don't confirm it, because once you confirm it, it's real. The shape stopped directly in front of the boathouse. Then it rose. Not all the way. Just enough that the surface tension bulged like something pressing from below. And then the water broke with the softest sound, like a mouth opening. A face emerged, pale, waterlogged, not rotten, not like a corpse you see in movies. More swollen, like skin that had been soaking so long it had forgotten what air felt like. The eyes were open, and they looked straight at me. I jerked back so hard I fell on my ass. The flashlight beam swung wild across trees, across the boathouse, across the glassy water. Olive barked once, sharp, The face sank instantly, gone like it had never been there. The surface smoothed. My whole body shook. I scrambled up, leash yanking, and dragged Olive back toward the house. Halfway up the slope, Olive stopped dead. Not because she refused to move, because something else made her stop. I followed her gaze. Through the trees, up near the house, I saw the second building, the little cabin structure, its dark windows staring back. And in one of those windows, a faint light flickered, like a candle or a phone screen. Someone was in there. My stomach rolled. I'd ignored that building all week because it felt like none of my business, because the main house was already creepy enough, because the homeowners hadn't mentioned it beyond it existing. Now, seeing that light, I knew it was part of the same thing. Like the property was a web, and I just touched one strand. I brought Olive back inside and locked every door. Deadbolts, chain, anything I could. Then I stood in the kitchen and stared at the basement door. If the cops were right and it was dry, why did it smell like lake water some nights? Why did I hear sloshing? And why did that voice know Olive's name? I couldn't sleep. I sat on the couch with the lights on until my eyes burned. Sometime after midnight, the tapping started again. Not upstairs this time, from the wall behind the couch. Top, top, like knuckles on drywall. Olive lifted her head, ears forward. She didn't bark. She just stared at the wall with that awful focus. Top, top, then a slow drag, like something pulling itself along the inside of the wall cavity. I shot up and backed away, heart trying to claw on my chest. Olive followed, posture low. The tapping moved, not through the air, through the structure. Top, top, drag. It traveled down the hallway toward the kitchen, like whatever was inside the wall was going somewhere. Then it stopped. Silence. I stood there, listening so hard my ears hurt. From the kitchen, the basement door latch clicked. Not the door opening, just the latch shifting like someone touched it. Olive growled, deeper than before. Her teeth bared. Don't, I whispered stupidly to the door. The basement door creaked open a fraction. Cold, wet air spilled out. And that smell hit again. Stagnant lake rust, something metallic like old blood, but not exactly. From down in the dark, a soft splashing sound rose. Then that voice, wet and wrong. You looked. My knees almost buckled, because it wasn't asking a question. It was accusing me. Olive barked, furious, and lunged toward the door. The leash wasn't on her now. She was free. She moved so fast I barely saw her. Olive, I shouted, and my voice cracked with panic. She slammed into the basement door like she was trying to block it with her body. She barked again, each one louder, more desperate. And the voice did something that made my blood freeze. It laughed, not bubbling this time, not faint, a wet, delighted laugh, like it had been waiting for this. Then it said, in a near-perfect imitation of the homeowner's voice, the mom's voice, the one that said, "That's our dog, Olive." It said, "Olive, come here." Olive stopped barking, like a switch flipped. She stood rigid, head tilted, staring down into the crack of darkness. No, don't. The voice repeated softer. Olive, cool me. And Olive took one step toward the opening. I surged forward and grabbed her collar, yanking her back. She snapped her head toward me, teeth bared. Not at me, but in confusion, like I was interfering with a command she couldn't disobey. Olive, I hissed in her face. No, stay with me. Her eyes flicked, brown and blue, and for a second she looked like herself again. Then the basement door opened wider. A hand appeared, not reaching out, just appearing in the gap, fingers curling around the edge of the door like it was pulling itself up. The hand was pale and swollen, and the nails were blackened like they'd been underwater for years. Water dripped from the fingertips, hitting the kitchen tile with soft plinks. Olive whimpered and tried to pull away, but I held her tight. The voice whispered again, right behind the hand, "Give her back." That was it. That was the moment my body went from fear to survival. I grabbed Olive fully, scooped her up like she was a puppy, even though she wasn't light, and I ran. I didn't stop to think about keys. I didn't stop to grab snacks. I didn't stop to close doors behind me. I ran out the front door into the night, Olive in my arms, thrashing and whining, and I didn't stop running until I hit my car. I fumbled the door open and shoved her into the back seat, then dove in the front and slammed the door and locked it. My hands shook so violently I couldn't get the key into the ignition. I kept missing the slot, metal scraping plastic. Behind me, the house sat quiet and dark. No footsteps, no silhouette. Then the porch light turned on, just clicked on, and there, standing in the doorway again, was that tall, wet shape. It didn't step out. It just watched me like it knew I'd come back. Like it knew the rules of ownership and I didn't. It lifted its hand and pointed, not at me, at the back seat where Olive was. Then it made a motion like twisting something, like locking. Olive started barking the back seat, frantic. I jammed the key in and turned it. The engine coughed, then started. I threw the car into reverse, so hard it jerked. As I backed down the driveway, the porch light stayed on, illuminating the doorway like a stage. The shape didn't move, but I heard something else now from the lake direction. A bark, that deep bark again, followed by a second bark, then a third, like multiple throats answering. Olive barked back, high and panicked, slamming her body against the car door like she wanted to crawl through it. "Stop!" I yelled at her because I didn't know what else to do. "Stop, stop, stop!" She didn't stop. She kept barking until her voice went hoarse. I drove all the way to my house. I didn't care that I didn't have permission. I didn't care that it might blow up my family's friendship. I only cared that I wasn't going back there with her. My mom woke up when I stumbled in at 2 in the morning with a shaking dog and eyes like saucers. She thought I'd hit something, thought someone had attacked me. The words came out in a mess: padlock, basement, lake, voice, cops. She stared at me like she didn't know which part to grab first. Then she looked at Olive and her expression changed. Because Olive wasn't acting like a normal stress dog. She wasn't just anxious. She was focused, like she was still listening. My mom said, "We're calling them." She called. No answer. She texted. Delivered. Then, at 3 in the morning, a call finally came through. The homeowner. The mom. Her voice sounded too awake. "Where is she?" she asked immediately. My mom stiffened. "Your dog is here. My son is terrified. What the hell is going on?" Silence for a beat. Then the mom said, very quietly, "You took her off the property." "Yes," I blurted. "Someone locked her in a crate. Something was in the basement. I'm not going back." Another beat of silence. Then, in a voice that sounded like she was forcing each word through her teeth, she said, "You need to bring her back before sunrise." My mom's face went tight. "Excuse me." "Before sunrise," the mom repeated sharper. "If she's not back." "If she's not back, what?" my mom snapped. The mom exhaled, and I heard something in the background of the call like water moving, like a sink running. Then she said, "It'll come looking." My mom went pale. "What will come looking?" The mom didn't answer directly. She said, "Do you know why we told them not to go near the water?" My throat went dry. My mom said, "You're not making sense." "It can't leave the property if Olive is there," the mom whispered. "Olive keeps it contained." I felt like I'd been punched. "What the fuck does that mean?" I said, voice raw. The mom's voice cracked. "We didn't mean for him to find out like this." My mom snapped. "Find out what?" "Tell me what's happening, or I'm calling the police again, and animal control, and whoever else I can think of." Another silence. Then the mom said, "We can't involve anyone else. Please, just bring her back." "Absolutely not," my mom said, and her tone was a blade. The mom's voice rose, the calm cracking. "You don't understand what you're doing." My mom said, "Then explain it." The mom whispered, and the words made my blood run cold. "It used to be her dog." I stared at the phone like it had turned into a snake. My mom said, "What?" "It used to be ours," the mom repeated. "Not Olive. The other one. The one in the water." My mouth went numb. "There's a dog in the lake," I said, and it came out flat like my brain was trying to make it a normal sentence. The mom inhaled, shaky. "It's not a dog anymore." My mom looked at me with horror. "What did you people do?" "We didn't do it," the mom snapped, and for the first time I heard real anger. We didn't. It happened. It happened, and we tried to fix it, and we couldn't. We tried to keep it quiet. We tried to keep it. My mom cut her off. Why is there a padlock on the crate? Why is my kid hearing voices in your basement? The mom said, because it learns. That word, learns. It made my stomach twist. It hears you, she continued. It hears the house. It hears the dog. It hears us. It copies. It uses. It wants Olive back because Olive knows it's there. Olive keeps it from getting bold. My mom said, this is insane. The mom's voice dropped to almost nothing. We lock Olive at night because if she sees it at the door, she'll go to it. She'll go to it to stop it. And if she gets too close to the waterline, her voice broke. We almost lost her last summer. I remember the second building, the grandparents, the neglected yard, the pristine driveway, the feeling of a property being maintained like a battlefield. I said, what's in the second house? The mom went quiet. The silence was answer enough. My mom's eyes widened. There are people there. The mom whispered, my grandfather lives with us. My mom's voice turned icy. And you didn't mention that to the teenage boy you left alone on your property? The mom said, we didn't leave him alone. Olive. Olive is a dog, my mom snapped. Not an armed guard. The mom's breathing got fast. Please, just before sunrise. My mom said no. The mom's voice shifted then. And I swear to God, for half a second, it wasn't her voice anymore. It sounded wet, and it said, bring her back. My mom pulled the phone away from her ear like it had burned her. Her face drained of color. I grabbed the phone, furious. Stop doing that, I hissed. Stop. Whoever's there, stop. The line went dead. My mom and I stood there in the kitchen, the house silent around us. Olive pacing in tight circles, nails clicking on tile like a metronome. My mom finally said, we're not bringing her back. I opened my mouth to agree. Then Olive stopped pacing and stared at our back door. Her head tilted. Top, top. The sound came from our door. Not loud, gentle, like knuckles on glass. My mom froze. Top, top. Olive growled so low it vibrated the floor. My entire body went cold. Because the lake house wasn't here. The boathouse wasn't here. But the sound was here. My mom whispered, no. Top, top. Then a slow scratch down the glass of her back door. Olive barked, savage, and lunged toward it. I grabbed her collar and held her back. My mom's hands shook as she reached for the curtain, just enough to peek. She jerked back immediately, eyes huge. What? I whispered, barely able to breathe. She swallowed hard. There's someone standing outside. My stomach dropped. Who? My mom's voice came out thin. It looks like someone soaked. Like they just climbed out of a lake. Olive thrashed in my grip, barking nonstop now like her whole body was an alarm. Top, top. Then a voice, right through the glass, soft and wet and too close. Olive. I couldn't move. My bones felt full of ice. My mom whispered, how did it? Top, top. Bring her back. And then, from the front of our house, another sound answered. A bark, deep, throaty, followed by a second bark from somewhere farther down the street, and a third, closer. My neighborhood suddenly felt like that driveway. Trees leaning in, sky hidden, air holding its breath. My mom whispered, call the police. My hands fumbled for my phone, but my fingers were numb. I hit 911 again, voice cracking, telling them there was someone in my house, that I'd called earlier from a different address that had followed me. They asked for description. They asked for location. They asked if it was armed. I almost laughed, hysterical. Armed? With what? Lake water? Olive wouldn't stop barking. She strained toward the door with a desperation that terrified me more than the tapping. Because it wasn't just fear. It was duty. Like she believed she had to go to it. Like that was her job. My mom grabbed the kitchen knife too, because apparently that's what humans do when faced with something impossible. We grab a piece of metal and pretend it changes the physics. The scratching stopped. Silence. Then the back door handle turned. It was locked. The handle jiggled once, then stopped. Olive's bark turned into a scream of a sound, high and raw. And then, On the other side of the glass, something made a small, sad noise. Like a dog whining. A deep dog, not Olive. The same bark throat. The sound of something wanting in. My mom's face twisted like she was going to cry. It's trying to sound. It learns, I whispered. The voice, soft now, almost coaxing. Olive. Good girl. Cool me. Olive froze mid-bark. She stood rigid, ears forward, mouth open, breathing hard. And then she took one step toward the door. No, I said, and my voice came out a sob. I grabbed her collar and pulled her back. No, stay. She fought me. Not aggressively, but with this single-minded pull like her body was being magnetized. My mom shouted, Olive, stop. Olive didn't listen, because she wasn't listening to us. Top. The voice became the homeowner's mom voice again, perfectly. Olive, come here, baby. Olive whined and pulled harder. I dug my heels into the floor, gripping her collar with both hands. You're not taking her, I snarled, and I wasn't sure who I was talking to. The thing outside, the homeowners, the lake itself. Then the tapping stopped. The air changed. It got colder, not temperature cold, like pressure cold, like the room suddenly had more weight in it. From the hallway leading to our basement, a soft slosh rose. I turned my head so fast my neck hurt. Our basement door was closed, but underneath it, a thin line of water seeped out. A dark, wet line spreading across our floor like a tongue. My mom stared, jaw trembling. Oh my God, the sloshing grew louder, like something shifting in shallow water. And from behind that door, the voice whispered, intimate and pleased. You brought it home. I swear I almost blacked out. Fear hit me so hard my vision narrowed. My mom screamed, get out now. We didn't stop to grab shoes. We didn't stop to grab anything. We grabbed Olive, literally lifted her together, fighting her pulling body, and we ran out the front door into the night. Neighbors' porch lights flicked on as we stumbled into the street like lunatics. Someone yelled, hey, you okay? My mom screamed back, call 911. I didn't even look behind us. I didn't want to see it. I didn't want the image burned into my head like the lake house doorway. But I heard it. Behind us, in our yard, in the dark between houses, the wet footsteps began. Heavy, squishing. Then, soft as a promise, the voice said behind me, bring her back. Police arrived again, faster this time, because suburban neighborhoods get responses. 2 cars, then 3. Officers spilling out, flashlights, commands, confusion. My mom talked over me, voice shaking but furious, telling them about the earlier call, the lake house, the thing outside our back door, the water leaking from our basement. She sounded insane, and she didn't care. The officers searched our yard. They found nothing. They searched our basement. They found water. Not flooding. Not a broken pipe. Just a shallow spread across the concrete floor like someone had dumped buckets. It didn't smell like our tap. It smelled like lake mud. One officer knelt, dipped his fingers, rubbed it, frowned. This isn't from your plumbing. My mom said, voice sharp, no shit. They asked if anyone could have broken in. They asked if I'd been drinking. They asked if we had enemies. They asked if we'd been watching scary movies. I want to punch something. Olive sat between my feet on the driveway under flashing lights, trembling, eyes glued to the dark street like she expected the wet shape to step into the strobe. An older officer took me aside, away from my mom's anger. He spoke quietly, like he didn't want to set her off further. You said this started at the property you were house sitting, he said. Yes. Address again? I gave it. He nodded slowly. Then he said something that made my skin crawl. We've been out there before. I stared. For what? He hesitated, weighing how much to say. Then, noise complaints. Calls about dogs. Calls about people yelling. My throat tightened. People. He looked away. Sometimes family situations get messy. I thought about the second building. The grandfather. You mean the older guy? I said. The officer's jaw tightened. I didn't say that, but he didn't deny it either. My mom came up then, eyes hard. We're not going back there, she said to me, like she needed to anchor it. Do you understand? You're done. They can keep their money. The officers agreed we should not go back. They suggested we keep doors locked, maybe stay with family for the night. They couldn't do much more because there was no suspect and no evidence of forced entry, even though there was literal lake-smelling water in our basement. And then, just before dawn, my phone buzzed with a text from the homeowner. Bring her back. Now, my mom saw it and snatched my phone like she was going to throw it through a wall. No, she texted back, thumb stabbing. Your dog is safe. We are contacting animal control and the police. Immediately, dots. Then, if she stays there, we'll come fully. Please. My mom's face shifted. That word, fully. Like what we'd seen wasn't full. I took my phone back and typed, hands shaking. What is it? A long pause. Then, accident. Drowning. It didn't stop. My stomach dropped. Drowning, I whispered. My mom looked at me. What? I showed her. She stared at it, then typed. Who drowned? Another long pause. Then, our dog. Then my grandfather tried to get it. Then it got him. I felt like the ground wasn't steady. Like reality was a surface that could break. My mom's voice went low. Your grandfather is alive. Another pause. Then, not like before. I stared at Olive. She stared back, head tilted like she understood every word. My mom said, we're going there. With police. Daylight. We're ending this. No. I brurta panik surging. They said don't go near the water. They said before sunrise. My mom's eyes flashed. Sunrise is already here. And it came here anyway. So clearly whatever rules they think exist are bullshit. She was right. And that terrified me more. But we went. Because once a thing follows you home, you stop believing distance matters. We convinced 2 officers to escort us back to the lake house. It wasn't easy. It took my mom turning on that righteous parent voice that makes grown men uncomfortable. It took showing them the earlier report number, the water in our basement, the messages. Finally, 2 officers agreed to do a welfare check on the property and the elderly resident. We drove in a small convoy. My mom's car, my car behind with Olive, 2 patrol cars. Morning light made everything look less haunted. That was the cruelest part. The trees looked normal. The driveway looked like a driveway. The house looked like a house. But Olive started shaking the second we turned onto their long drive. Not when we reached the house. Not when the lake came into view. The second we crossed the property line. Like her body knew. The patrol cars parked. Officers got out. My mom marched up the porch steps like she was going to knock and demand answers, like it was a neighbor dispute. No one answered. The front door was locked. The curtains were drawn. One officer knocked. Police. Anyone home? Silence. He tried again. Louder. Still nothing. My mom looked at me. Do you have a key? I did. Keyring in my pocket. It felt heavier now, like it had grown weight. I unlocked the door. The air inside hit us immediately, cold and damp, even in daylight. The house smelled like wet wood. Olive refused to step in. She braced her paws on the porch and pulled back, whining, eyes wide. One officer noticed. Dog doesn't want to go inside. No shit, my mom muttered. The officers entered first, radios crackling. We followed. The kitchen looked normal. The crate sat where it always did. No padlock. Bauschamin, door shut. But the silence was wrong. It wasn't just quiet. It was expectant, like the house was waiting for us to say the wrong thing. An officer checked rooms. Another called out names. Still no response. My mom walked straight down the hallway, toward the back, and stared through the windows at the lake. The water was still glass. The boathouse sat in the same crouch position, locked. My mom's jaw clenched. We're going to the other building, she said. One officer hesitated. Ma'am, we're here to check the residents and the elderly occupant. We should. The elderly occupant is in that building, my mom snapped. And you said you've been here for welfare checks before. Don't pretend you don't know. The officer's face tightened. He didn't argue. He motioned and they moved, cautious now. We stepped out into the yard. Olive stayed at my heel, but trembled constantly, head flicking between the lake and the little cabin building. The grass around the cabin was worse. taller, like it had been ignored longer. The porch sagged. The door looked old. The windows were dark even in daylight. The officer knocked. "Police. Welfare check." Nothing. He tried the knob. Locked. He glanced back at me. "Key." I shook my head. "I don't think it's on the ring." He sighed and reached for his radio. "We may have an unresponsive residence." Requesting. From inside the cabin, a sound answered. A bark. Deep. Throaty. Angry. Olive froze. The officers froze too, because now it wasn't just a crazy teen story. It was a dog barking from inside a locked building. One officer stepped back and tried the door harder. "Open up." The barking turned into something else, like a choking sound, wet and strained. Then a voice came from inside. A man's voice, old and ruined, like it had been soaked. "Don't." My mom's face went pale. "That's him." The officer tried again. "Sir, open the door. We're here to make sure you're okay." Silence. Then soft. "It's hungry." My skin crawled. The officer looked at his partner. They both made the same decision at once. This was no longer come back later. They moved fast. One stepped to the window and peered in. The other radioed. "We have an elderly male inside. Possible medical distress." The officer at the window recoiled slightly. "Jesus." "What?" my mom demanded. He didn't answer her. He forced the window open with a grunt. The glass squealed. Then he leaned in with his flashlight, and he said, quietly, almost to himself, "There's water in there." My stomach dropped. The cabin was above ground. There was no reason for water. They forced the door. The lock gave with a loud crack, and the door swung inward. Cold, wet air poured out like a breath. Inside, the cabin was dim, curtains drawn. The floorboards were wet. Not just damp, wet enough that their boots left prints. And in the center of the room was a kiddie pool. Not an inflatable one, a hard plastic one, the kind toddlers play in. It was filled to the brim with murky water. And beside it, slumped in a chair like he'd been left there, was the grandfather. His skin looked gray. His hair was thin and plastered to his scalp like it had been wet, but not recently, like it was always wet now. His clothes hung wrong on his body, too heavy, like they'd soaked and dried and soaked again. His eyes were open, and he was breathing, but each breath sounded like water, like someone trying to inhale through a sponge. My mom covered her mouth. "Oh my God." The grandfather's gaze lifted slowly, focusing on Olive. His lips moved. "Olive," he whispered, and it was the same wet whisper from the basement. Not the same voice exactly. This was older, more human, but the cadence was identical, like a script being read. Olive growled low, backing away, pressing into my leg. One officer moved to the grandfather. "Sir, can you hear me? We're going to help you." The grandfather's head tilted, the same tilt. Then, in the homeowner mom's voice, perfectly, he said, "Don't go near the water." My mom sobbed once, involuntary. The officer jerked back, shaken despite himself. "What the hell?" From the kiddie pool, the water rippled. Not from anyone touching it. From beneath. A bulge rose in the center like something pushing up from under plastic. My entire body locked. "No," he whispered. The officer stepped back, hand near his weapon. "Sir, what's in the pool?" The grandfather smiled. That wrong smile. And he whispered, "It comes up." The bulge rose higher. The surface tension quivered. Then a wet hand broke the surface, fingers splayed, nails black. And Olive went berserk. She barked like she was trying to rip her throat out. She lunged forward, dragging me a step, then yanked back like she was terrified to get too close. Her whole body was shaking with conflict. The officer shouted, "Everyone back!" My mom grabbed my arm and pulled me toward the door. But I couldn't look away, because the hand wasn't attached to a body that made sense. The wrist was too thin, the skin too swollen, and behind it, emerging slowly from the pool like it was climbing out of a different world, was a head. Pale, smooth, waterlogged. Not the grandfather, not a person I recognized. Its mouth opened and water poured out, and then it barked. That deep, throat bark I'd heard from the lake. My mom screamed. The officers moved. One grabbed my mom, shoving her out the door. The other aimed his gun at the pool, shouting commands that meant nothing to something coming out of water. The thing's head tilted. Then it spoke in my voice. I'm not leaving her. My blood turned to ice. It climbed higher, shoulders emerging, covered in what looked like dark wet fur, but wrong, clumped like algae and hair together. It wasn't a dog. It wasn't a man. It was both, mashed by water and time, and whatever rules didn't apply here. The officer fired. The gunshot exploded in the small cabin like a bomb. My ears rang. My heart slammed. The bullet hit the thing's shoulder. It didn't bleed like a person. It leaked water. Murky, dark water that splashed back into the pool. It didn't scream. It laughed. A wet, bubbling laugh. Then, fast as a whip, it lunged out of the pool. Not walking. Not crawling. Flowing. Like water, shaping itself into a lunge. The officer stumbled back, nearly falling. He fired again. Another shot. Another splash of water. The thing's hand slapped onto the floorboards, leaving a smear of wetness. Then it turned toward Olive. And Olive, like she couldn't help herself, lunged forward. Olive, no. I screamed. She snapped at it, teeth flashing, but her bite didn't land on flesh the way it should have. It landed on something slick and wet and yielded like soaked cloth. The thing hissed, and in the homeowner's mom voice, it said sharply, "Mine." Olive yelped and jerked back, like something burned her mouth. The officer shouted. My mom screamed my name. Hands grabbed me from behind, dragging me out the door. I fought because Olive was still inside. I saw her scramble backward, pause, slipping on wet boards, trying not to lose ground. The thing moved toward her, dripping, smiling. And the grandfather, still in his chair, whispered like a proud trainer, "Good dog." My mom hauled me out, slamming the cabin door behind us. An officer threw his weight against it, trying to hold it shut. From inside, something hit the door. Hard. The wood bowed. Again, BAM. The officer braced, face strained. Get back. Get back. We stumbled off the porch into the yard. One officer shouted into his radio, voice shaking, calling for backup, EMS, anyone. Then the cabin windows rattled like something shoved them from inside. A wet barking sound erupted, furious. Olive barked back from inside, high panicked. My heart broke. She's in there. My mom grabbed my face with both hands, forcing me to look at her. You can't go in, she said, voice shaking violently. You can't. I have to. You don't, she snapped, tears streaking down her cheeks. You don't. You cannot. From inside the cabin, the barking stopped abruptly. Silence. Then a sound that made my blood freeze. A collar jingling. Olive's collar. Moving. But not with Olive's normal cadence. Not with her quick, nervous little steps. Slow. Deliberate. Like someone wearing her collar and walking. The cabin door handle turned. The officer holding it swallowed hard. Oh no. The door opened inward, not forced like someone gently pushing. And Olive stepped out. For a split second, relief hit me, so hard I almost collapsed. Then I saw her eyes. One brown, one blue, but not Olive's eyes. These are too still, too bright, too aware. Olive's body moved like Olive, but slightly off, like a puppet learning. She stepped onto the porch and tilted her head. Then, in the homeowner mom's voice, she said, "Bring her back." My mom made a sound like she'd been punched. The officer raised his gun, shaking. "Get down," he shouted at my mom and me. Olive. No. The thing wearing Olive. Turned its head toward him. It smiled with Olive's mouth. And then it barked. The bark wasn't Olive's. It was that deep lake bark coming out of Olive's throat like the wrong instrument. The officer fired. The shot hit Olive's body. Olive's body collapsed. For a second, everything went silent in my head. But my brain refused. Then the body hit the porch boards with a wet slap and didn't bleed. It leaked water. Murky water poured out from the wound like a busted hose. And from that leaking water, something moved. A shape rose, stretching out of the dog body like smoke out of a broken chimney. The officer backed up, swearing. My mom grabbed me and dragged me farther into the yard, away from the porch. The shape thickened, forming that tall, wet silhouette again, peeling itself out of Olive's skin like it had been wearing it. Olive's real body, her real body, wasn't there anymore. It had never been there. Not once it stepped out. The thing stood on the porch, dripping, and pointed at us. And then, in my mom's voice, it said, "You can't keep her." My mom went rigid. It heard me. I whispered, "It learns." The officers opened fire again. 2 guns now. Shots cracking in daylight. The thing didn't flinch like a person. It shimmered with impacts, water splashing, but it stayed standing. Then it turned its head toward the lake. The glass surface rippled. A line of movement traveled across it like something huge shifting beneath. The boathouse door rattled. Clang, 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 like something inside wanted out. The thing on the porch spread its arms slightly, like welcoming. And then it stepped off the porch and walked toward the slope leading to the water. Not running, not fleeing, returning. As it walked, the grass it stepped on darkened, wetting instantly, like water seeped from its footprints. The officer shouted, "Stop! Get down!" Commands meant for humans. The thing didn't stop. My mom's grip on my arm hurt. "We're leaving," she said, voice shaking. "Now!" But I couldn't look away, because as it neared the waterline, the surface split. A head rose. Another. Shapes like dogs, like people, like neither, emerging just enough to show eyes and mouths. And they all looked toward the thing, like a pack looking at its leader. My stomach turned. "There's more," I whispered. The thing reached the edge of the water and paused. It turned back toward us one last time. It tilted its head, and in Olive's barkless silence, because it didn't bark now, it spoke. It said, softly, almost kindly, "She was never yours." Then it stepped into the lake. The water didn't splash the way it should. It swallowed it smoothly, like accepting. The shapes beneath shifted and followed. The lake's surface smoothed again, glassy, innocent. The boathouse stopped rattling. Silence fell over the property like a blanket. The officers stood frozen, guns still up, breathing hard like they just sprinted. One muttered, "What the fuck?" My mom's voice was hoarse. "Where's the dog?" I couldn't answer. My throat was closed, because I knew. In the sick way you know things when the horror clicks into place. Olive wasn't just a pet to them. She was a tether, a boundary marker, a living stake in the ground. And I'd taken her off the property. I'd pulled the stake. I'd given it permission to learn how to leave. The cops called and everything after that. More units, animal control, EMTs. They got the grandfather out, sort of. He was alive, but he kept whispering. It comes up over and over like a prayer. He coughed water, real lake water, muddy. The homeowners finally arrived late that afternoon, screaming, crying, furious. Not at the thing, at us, at the police, at each other, like panic needed a target. They kept demanding Olive back, but Olive was gone. Whatever had been wearing her had gone into the lake like it was going home. My mom threatened lawsuits. The police threatened charges. The homeowners threatened. Nothing coherent, just desperation. And through it all, the lake stayed still. No ripes, no proof, like it was waiting for night. I thought that was the end. It wasn't. For weeks after, I heard water where there shouldn't be water. In my walls, late at night, tap tap drag. In the pipes, even when no one ran a faucet, sloshing like something shifting. Sometimes when I'd stand and shower too long, I'd feel that pressure cold in the bathroom, like the air thickening, and I'd swear I heard a soft bark under the spray. My mom sold our house within a year. She said it was because of bad memories, but I saw her flinch every time it rained. The homeowners moved too, eventually. The lake house went up for sale, and then off market, and then sat empty. I checked once, months later, driving by like an idiot who wanted closure. The driveway was cracked. The weeds were taller. The flower bed was a jungle. But the boathouse looked newly repaired. Fresh wood, fresh lock. Someone was still paying attention to the big, obvious stuff. I don't know where Olive went. I don't know if she ever existed in the way I thought she did. I don't know if there was a real Olive at the beginning and then she got replaced, or if she was always part of it. Why to know is this? Sometimes, when I'm driving near water, any water, even a drainage pond behind a grocery store, I'll see a shape just under the surface sliding. And if I look too long, I'll hear it in my head. That wet whisper, patient and possessive, like it's already decided. Bring her back.